Thank you for watching another video presented to you by PWE Computers. This video tutorial is going to go a little bit more in depth on CCleaner software and is part 2 video. If you have not watched part 1, I recommend you on doing so, or if you already have the CCleaner installed, you may continue watching. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Internet Explorer. A lot of these I have already discussed that in another video about how to clean out your Internet Explorer history and everything like that. I also dabbed a little bit in Windows Explorer about how whenever you do a search or something like that. Now the system right here, this will empty out your recycle bin, temporary files, clipboard, memory dumps, and check disk file fragments. And a lot of these I'd recommend on go ahead and clearing out. In my case, I'm also going to check the Windows error reporting. I'm going to check the font cache. DNS cache, I always leave that on because sometimes I'll have to double check that, so I don't really have that cleared up. But then start menu shortcuts and desktop menu shortcuts, you might want to leave those unchecked because if you have certain images on here, it may get rid of them. Under Advanced, I highly recommend on leaving these alone. A lot of times when you first use this application, it's best to just use the default values that it already has set for you. Under Applications, these will clean any extras that they have. In this case, you can see that it is even picking up Google Chrome. And there's a lot of these I want to go ahead and get rid of, but some of them I want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck some of these. For applications, you can see that I even have some of these set up. Now, the purpose of this is that it actually goes in and gets rid of the temporary files. So a lot of these, it's safe to go ahead and check it. As I've spoke before, you can also hit Analyze. Once it analyzes it, then you can hit Run Cleaner. The last thing I want to dive into is the registry. Now, with the registry, it'll show you everything that is listed for the registry. And once you have all these checked, you'll go ahead and hit Scan Issues. And this will go through and look for all of the registry issues. Now, missing, shared, DLLs, those are driver types that are, well, as it says, missing. Unused file extensions, and unused file extension, as you can see, is .sqm. And then you have ActiveX and class issues, which ActiveX basically just runs various types of applications. And a lot of the times, if there's something that ActiveX is trying to run, but it will not load up, then it'll tell you that ActiveX has a problem loading or ActiveX has crashed. Please restart this application or your web browser. Every time it lets you know that that has happened, then it will save it as a temporary file. Type libraries, I usually go ahead and have that checked. It's just little extra miscellaneous information. Applications are basically things that are installed that need to be cleaned on the Windows registry. Application paths are something where information is stored for an application. Usually I leave that unchecked as well. Help files are basically just little files that you have done a search on in case something has caused an error and a window pops up saying please search the help for any questions you may have. Installer files, I usually leave that unchecked as well. Obsolete software. An example of obsolete software, if you have installed an update patch for a program and 2 months later you installed another one, well, that update patch is still on the registry. And so you'd want to make sure that this is checked because it's no longer using that software, it's just taking up space. Items that run on startup, you can have that checked because that will actually clean up those, so this way it will load faster on startup to certain things that you may or may not use. The last 3 are generally relatively important, so I would go ahead and keep those checked. But after you have all these checked, you go ahead and hit Fix Selected Issues. You want to back up changes to the registry. Always hit Yes. Because you are messing with the registry, you want to make sure you create a backup, so if it does mess something up, it's okay. You have a backup, and this will restore it back to its default values. I'm just going to go ahead and save it as the standard save type, save file name. I'm going to go and tell it to fix all selected issues. Once I've done that, you can go ahead and close that out. And now we have scanned the registry and it is clean. Next are tools. Under tools you have uninstall, startup, system restore, and drive wiper. Under uninstall you can go through here just like as in another video tutorial I have for programs and uninstalling applications. You can actually go through here, look at some of the applications you have, and you can simply click on them and uninstall. In this case, Direct VOB sub is a good example. I'm going to go and tell it to run uninstaller, and this lovely window will pop up. From there, I will click yes. You also want to delete Direct VOB settings, and I will say yes. So now it has gone through the uninstall process, and it tells me Direct VOB sub was successfully removed from your PC. And I will hit OK. Under startup, these are applications that will automatically start when Windows starts. And one of the ways you can do that, I'm going to go ahead and scroll this down just a little bit. Make this window a little bit wider so you can kind of see a little bit more what's going on. Okay, so one thing I may not want to run is I don't want my Google Drive to run whenever I start, so I'll tell that to disable. I will tell a lot of these to disable. And the purpose of this is the next time I start my computer, because a lot of these do not run, they're not having to load when Windows loads. And doing this will actually allow it to run much, much faster. Now, when you go through here, you'll want to read some of these. Like, an example is Microsoft Security Client. Well, that is Microsoft Security Essentials, which is my virus program. You want to make sure whatever virus program you have installed, that it will be running. Because if you don't, when you start it up, then you'll be starting it up without virus protection, and that will leave your computer open for getting a virus. The other thing I have still loading is my Realtek audio, and that is basically my sound. But now something like this, where it's search settings, you can choose to go ahead and disable that or keep it enabled. That's really up to you. This right here is for my graphics capabilities. I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to go ahead and disable this and this. I'm just going to go through a couple of these. You can choose which ones you want to go through. Just make sure that you're looking at what you are disabling. And the other one, if you have a net session, or it might also be something like a desktop manager, I would leave that enabled as well. System restore. This will show all the things that you have removed. After removing a program called SyncUp, it actually created a restore point. And you can create restore points very easily. And a lot of the times, whenever you use CCleaner, it will ask you if you'd like to create a restore point. I always recommend that you do. So if something happens or your computer messes up after having it cleaned, you know, you can just go right back in there, restore it back to the previous settings, and it will work just fine. The last thing I'm going to go into is Drive Wiper. Now, these are contents of free space on a drive. And what this will do is you have free space or entire space. What a drive wipe does is it basically cleans up the hard drive. An example would be if your hard drive represents your living room, then this drive wiper basically goes through and vacuums it for you. So the computer is able to go through it and pick up whatever files or videos or music you're wanting to load much quicker and much more efficiently. Now, when you check this, make sure it's set to free space only, because if you do entire drive, it will erase all data. So you can check whichever disks you have. That's really up to you. And that pretty much concludes this update. I'm going to dab into options here real quick. Under settings, you can change certain things. You'll see right here where it says run CCleaner when the computer starts. Now, I don't like to have this checked because it can actually take a little bit longer for your computer to start if you have that checked. Add run CCleaner option to recycle bin is what that means. If you go to recycle bin and you right click, you'll scroll down here and you'll see what says open CCleaner and run CCleaner. Usually I'll just go ahead and tell it to empty recycle bin and delete it like so. And as you can see, it also says right here open CCleaner. Automatically check updates for CCleaners. What this will do is it'll go ahead and check updates automatically. or you can simply go over here and click on this right here to check for updates manually. The last thing is secure deletions. Now, the difference is the way it deletes. A secure deletion will actually get rid of everything dealing with whatever it was you deleted. A normal file deletion is much quicker, but it's kind of like taking a pencil and paper and writing something on the paper. Well, whenever you erase it, you can still see that something was there, and that's the equivalency of a normal file deletion. Whereas a secure file deletion makes sure it gets up all of the lead so you can no longer see what was on there. And we've already dabbed a little bit into wipe-free space drives, so not much needs to be said there. Next thing are cookies. Now this will ask you, what kind of cookies do you want to keep? These are ones that it asks you if you want to delete, and these are the ones that it says you want to keep. And the way you do that, if you scroll down, say an example would be, you have something on Hotmail, then is what you'll do, in this case I'm just going to see what all I have, chase.com. You'll simply click on it right here, and you'll move it out. If you do not want to keep those cookies, and cookies basically keep all your information, you'll simply click on it over here and move it over. An example would be this one right here. I don't know what that is, so therefore I do not want to keep it in here to keep it. Include. Basically, these are files and folders that you want CCleaner to remove specifically. Now, if you're an advanced user, this is very good to use. If you're not sure which ones you want to include in here, I recommend on either asking your computer administrator or your IT technician. But a lot of times you can simply go in here to add, and you can add in the drive or the folder just by simply clicking on one of these, or you can select a specific file. Under here, this is the exclude. So if there are certain things you want to exclude CCleaner from getting rid of, such as a driver folder, you can do the same thing. So a very good example is I've had several people tell me that they want to keep pictures. Well, they would simply go here and click on videos or music, whichever it may be. And let's say they want to keep this sync up folder, or maybe they want to keep their My Music. Well, as you can see, by me simply clicking on music, it will now keep that folder on here, and it will exclude it from being deleted at any time. Last, under advanced settings. Now, a lot of these are still mainly for advanced users. So if a lot of it looks kind of scary or it's not something you understand, I recommend on leaving these alone and asking your computer administrator or your IT technician about a lot of these. But some of the basic ones are you want to close a program after cleaning, you want to hide the warnings, and you want to delete files only older than 24 hours that are in the recycle bin. Now I go ahead and tell it to delete everything, and a lot of this is set to default settings. But if you're unsure about something, you can go ahead and click on Restore to Default Settings, hit Yes, and it will bring everything back to the way it was. Well, that basically concludes this video on part 2 of CCleaner. I hope you have learned a little bit more about computers, and I hope to see you in the next video.